Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Yal, and very soon we'll be finally getting access to a brand new season for The War Within, with the patch 11.2 dropping so soon. But with a brand new season comes with it a variety of different class changes that will likely shake up the meta, whether we're talking about raids or Mythic Plus content. And a lot of you guys recently have started to ask me, hey, what is looking like the best class heading into the next update? And as much as I want to give you guys like a direct answer, just to make sure that you're not picking the wrong class going forward, it is still super up in the air. Until the final tuning for classes has been finalized, we don't really have an idea what the meta and what the best classes are going to be once the patch is officially live. But until then, I have noticed a trend of certain playstyles appearing a lot more often, at least when it comes to testing Mythic Plus content. This may change a lot over the next few weeks as they're going to be doing a lot more dungeon tuning, but certain classes are definitely looking a lot stronger than others, and I wanted to highlight the playstyles that I've seen the most so far over on the PTR. So this is going to be the list of classes that are right now the most desired and are highly preferable for most players testing dungeons when it comes to PTR, especially when you look at your time those dungeons and are looking for the most amount of success. These are the classes that everybody seems to gravitate towards, at least for the time being. So maybe you may want to start to level these classes ahead of 11.2 dropping. As always, if you guys want to just keep up with any of the major class changes or patch notes for the patch 11.2, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. But otherwise, let's dive right in. Hopefully I already mentioned it in my intro, but one more time, this is definitely in no means like a tier list of these are the best classes that are going to be the strongest in Season 3, just more like a snapshot of what is currently really good, or rather, what is currently being played a lot over in the PTR, because there's a lot of people that are testing dungeons and raids, but certain classes show up a lot more often, and these are the 5 specs that I noticed are showing up a lot more often than everybody else. One of them being Frost Death Knight, which actually was really popular during Season 1, with Death Knights continuing their domination in Season 2. There was a spec of Unholy, but they're looking like they might actually have a 3-season meta spot when it comes to at least M+ content with Frost. I think bringing it back with some massive burst output, unless all of a sudden Unholy just takes over. But between those two, between most melee, I see a lot of Frost Death Knights more than any other spec in the game, I would say. They essentially got a pretty massive rework heading into 11.2 PTR, where they basically now have a Frost Strike and a Obliterate as their single target rune spender, or rather runic power spender and a rune spender, and now they have like an AoE variation of it, with Glacial Advance being your runic power spender for AoE damage, and then Frostlight being the AoE version of Obliterate. So the spec is less about Obliterate or Frost Sights, it's more about killing machine procs. And the rest of the spec itself actually now constructs itself around the Killer Machine procs. If you played Death Knights before, there was a clean delineation between a Breath of Sindragosa Death Knights, which were all about resource management to extend the breath window, as well as Machine Gun Death Knights, or like Obliteration Death Knights, that were all about big procs of Killer Machines for some big Obliterates. And it seems like the Death Knight itself has become a basically Killer Machine proc in essence. As a spec, it's now a machine gun build, no matter how you slice it. Even if you're trying to play Breath of Sindragosa, this now gets extended based on your Killer Machine procs. So the Death Knight itself is just a bursty spec. It doesn't have the sustain window, it doesn't really have any like big breath window and then you're AFK for 2 minutes. Instead, you're all about basically killing machine procs at all times, basically embodying the burst that the spec has always naturally had. The damage has been fantastic so far, but Deathbringer changes have made it even better. Deathbringer being able to give you Exterminate Sights would do a bunch of damage, plus give you Kill Machine procs, also allows you to fuel that machine gun playstyle. That tier set is also very good, where casting Reaper's Mark grants you an Exterminate for free, and then grants you a crit buff, as well as Exterminate itself deals more damage, and Reaper's Mark can now stack up even further in damage, and that could do AoE damage as well. So the whole playstyle is very bursty, big AoE damage that has also some cleave capability where you could really prioritize single target damage and then just cleave everything around you. So it ends up being really good for bosses, really good for small target counts, but also amazing for AoE big target counts, as long as you can put things in front of you for that Frost Scythe, as well as those Glacial Advances, which is fairly easy to do. The spec continues to be a very tanky playstyle, with even the ability of Anti-Magic Zone becoming even better, more consistent when it comes to party and raid content. 15% DR, no cap on it, which is really nice, but also you get a little bit better utility with a shorter cooldown of Death Grip, While Blizzard does look at Death Grip as a raid cooldown, and I don't really agree with them, I don't think Death Grip is a raid utility for Death Knights. I really think they need somebody else to give them a little bit more of that raid viability, personally. But Death Grip, having a 15-second cooldown, is amazing for dungeons. Just being able to grip certain enemies, or even use grip to disrupt certain casts, which there's a lot of in this season, it's going to be really, really good. So for dungeon utility in particular, it feels like it fits the meta, at least the current meta of dungeons, really, really well. And right now, Frost Death Knights look like they have a very bright future ahead of them. Now, another spec that I think I could easily put on this list is the Balance Druid. This is another spec that I see played a lot over on the PTR, at least for the time being. While Druids didn't really get too many new changes when it comes to their talent tree, I mean, basically nothing really. The only thing that was new is new tier sets with Keeper of the Grove, as well as one for Elune's Chosen as a balanced druid. And even though Keeper of the Grove tier set by itself didn't really sound amazing on paper at first, in practice it's actually very, very powerful. And that's primarily why it's landing Boomkin here, because Keeper is doing some real cool stuff. With Keeper of the Grove, casting Celestial Alignment, or Incarnation if you talented into it, you summon an Assistance of a Dryad for 10 seconds that will cast Star Surge continuously at a target, but also will have a Starfall available for the full duration of the Dryad, which does decent damage all on its own. When Dryad fades, however, your next two Star Surge's damage is increased equal to a portion of the damage you did while the Dryad was active. So while it's active, it's literally calculating how much damage you did and then offloading that into your next two Star Surges. Also, those Star Surges can cleave all things around it for 20% of that single target damage done. Which means your Star Surges in a dungeon setting can hit for like 81 million, and those splash off to nearby targets as well with Druid's favor, or Dryad's favor. So normally Boomkins basically spam Starfall when they're hitting more than one target, and spam Star Surge when they're hitting a single target. But now that AoE damage can be compacted into a really big blast of this Kamehameha type of thing for Boomkin, that will deal more single target priority damage, which is something the spec I don't think really ever had access to previously, but that's priority damage that then cleaves everything around you. It is kind of weird just seeing an 81 million hit for a Boomkin just on a single target, watching that health bar just get chunked out with every single one of the surges. This allows you to focus in certain really rough enemies super easily, while all of the cooldowns inside of Incarnation are still rolling, so this gives you like a very powerful hit altogether. It is very strong, and that by itself gives Boomkins just so much more raw damage. It's kind of wild. But it's also not only single target damage, it is priority damage. So priority targets in a raid setting, or dungeon setting rather, are very important to take out. And that's generally been a weakness for Balanced Druid, is not a lot of priority damage. You have great cleave damage, but not enough priority damage to focus that one scary target. But the tier set kind of solves it. Plus, added in, Druids have probably one of the best kits when it comes to dungeons, when it comes to the raw utility. You basically have a class that now no longer has that many weaknesses, you know, maybe besides like having a on-demand interrupt. That is the only thing that it kind of lacks. It has to trade it with Solar Beam. Outside of that, I think Boomkin is actually potentially, if this stays tuned as it is right now, it doesn't get nerfed too hard, potentially could be having a very strong Season 3. Now, another spec that I see a lot of over in the PTR is the Arcane Mages, which are very popular right now in Season 2, primarily to that priority damage that we're talking about with Balanced Druids. And that priority damage continues to be something that they're very good at in terms of M+ over in the 11.2 PTR. But it feels like that priority damage is not the only thing they're good at, as they actually have quite a decent bit of more AoE and cleave damage that just absolutely slams through various targets, with barrages doing a significant portion of your overall damage, even more so because of Spellslinger. The mage itself didn't change too much. Spellslinger also didn't change too much. They did make it so that you're less likely just to get resets on Arcane Orb, which is unfortunate, but that is a trade-out for just more consistent Arcane Orbs with an AoE content, which actually ends up playing slightly better than I thought that it would. Primarily though, it is going to be the changes to the Spellslinger tier set that basically allows Arcane Blast to help build up the damage of Arcane Harmony, which will buff up the damage of your next barrage. So not only does Arcane Blast, but also now Splinters help build towards Arcane Harmony. When Arcane Harmony does reach max stacks, it actually also now grants you the buff of Intuition, which buffs up the damage of your barrage. So Guaranteed Intuition to buff the damage of Barrage, Arcane Harmony to also buff the damage of your Barrage, plus a bunch of orbs that can continuously be rotated in AoE, which lets you spam Barrage after Barrage while they're essentially fully empowered. It is a very kind of a fun playstyle, to be honest. It is very hard hitting though too. It is basically everything you would love in terms of Arcane Mage and big satisfying barrages, but ones you can control the procs of now. Of course, you're still gonna get random procs as well, but it just feels like you are almost overloaded with procs that you can now control, which is really nice in terms of AoE content. Because of this, I think Arcane Mage's damage, which is primarily single target priority damage or like funnel damage, is only getting stronger in this season if they don't really do too much more downward tuning in terms of reducing their damage output. As at first I actually played around with the spell singing tier set and I really didn't like the randomness of the whole Splinter mechanic and Arcane Harmony, but after giving it a proper go, after they buffed it by including Arcane Blast into the rotation, it actually feels a little bit smoother, which allows you to basically turn Arcane Harmony instead of a mechanic that you watch for, a mechanic that you intentionally build for in order to get some of those big barrages out there. So that further amplifies their cleave damage in AoE, that further amplifies their funnel damage in AoE, and gives them more consistent single target, which means that Arcane Mages are going to this patch, if not changed too much, basically doing what they're doing right now, ripping through targets in Season 2, but doing even more of that in Season 3. Now, another spec that I think can easily go on this list, at least for the time being, is Beast Mastery Hunter. This is another spec that I see, I think, in just about every single dungeon that I run when it comes to range classes. I think partially because they have a little bit more flexibility in how they synergize with everybody else. The bloodlust that they also bring is also really nice. The utility in dungeons is really good, but also Beast Mastery can press Stampede, or rather they can press Bestial Wrath that does damage with Stampede, which does a lot of damage in dungeons. It's very strong in single target, but it also just adds additional cleave damage to any enemy around you. So even if you are playing your Beastmaster Hunter for M+ content, primarily like a boss damage build, you'll still do fantastic cleave as long as you can shave off the cooldown of that Bestial Wrath to a minute, if not a lot less. The builds that I've been playing with is mostly just like a no cooldown or very short cooldown, big burst damage, getting as many pets as possible, and then getting a massive stampede that just rolls over everything thanks to the pack leader proc of lead from the front. The more procs of leads you can get, the more damage you can do with that tier setted stampede, which does a ton of damage. This is primarily, I think, what's putting BM ahead of a lot of the range classes out there. Technically, marksmanship hunters, we saw them do some really wacky damage pretty early in the PTR, and also we've seen how much damage survival hunters can also output with some of the grenades as well. Like in Hunt, and just in general, the class of hunter is looking kind of pretty good, at least for now. The hunters, however, have had a curse that has been lasting with them for a very long time. They usually end up being incredibly good over on the PTR, but once it comes out to live realms, they usually get nerfed into the dirt. So I wondered if the hunter, the class of hunter, the entire class of hunter, is going to suffer the same curse after 11.2 launches, or if they'll finally have a little bit of fun when it comes to getting some value within the spotlight. Now, on the list, I did also want to add someone that isn't a DPS class, and I was trying to figure out if I want to add a tank or a healer. However, with tanks and healers, things are kind of a little all over the place. As everybody is trying to rack their heads around what the meta may look like, there's a lot of testing going on, so every single playstyle is getting a lot of play. However, the one healer that I'm seeing consistently performing well when it comes to finishing dungeons, especially on the high end, is still right now Discipline Priest. It doesn't mean that this is going to be the meta class by any measure heading into the next update, but at least for the time being, it does seem like there's a lot more of them showing up on the PTR. And it's no wonder, because Disc Priests are very popular in Season 2 for their big absorption healing, thanks to the premonition playstyle of the Oracle, which grants them meaty, big shields. And shields can be really good in M+, because you could just kind of prevent the damage before it even happens in the first place, giving Disc Priests a very good throughput, healing-based playstyle, sacrificing some of their damage, but getting a lot more healing output, which is perfect for 5-man content in the way that is designed. Plus, the tiers that they're getting over in the 11.2 helps synergize and make that playstyle even stronger. First Bolt of Penance is going to deal 200% more damage or healing, which with Atonement, it ends up being healing or healing essentially. But also, the Premonition of Insight can now proc within Premonition of Solace and Premonition of Piety. Premonition of Insight is very good because it gives you big cooldown reduction, which can be used on penances to heal allies or to spread shields to absorb damage taken. And I have this powerful cooldown reduction element that is not present in the other insights as well, which overall increases more penances and more shields to absorb the damage taken. There is a reason why shields and penances are on a cooldown, and this tier set just basically lets you bypass that cooldown in a way. And in my mind, as long as shields remain as strong as they are right now and consistent as they are, heading into the next season, there's a good chance the disc base is, if anything, is probably going to be a very safe healer option, especially when it comes to M+ content. It's still hard to tell and definitely very early, and they haven't done the final class tuning by no means, so we don't have like a meta build whatsoever. But if anything, I definitely have noticed that there's a lot of disc base compared to some of the other healing options out there on the PTR. A lot of classes are being tested, especially when it comes to healers and tanks, but on average, I do feel like disc base right now is being gravitated towards a little bit, even if like ever so slightly. And that may come down to that preventative healing with those shields, which is still really effective. But with that being said, as always, I do want to thank all of you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give this video a like. I would very much appreciate it. Also, join our Disc community, especially if you want to keep up with any of the new class changes as soon as they appear over in 11.2 PTR. Also, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.